Welcome back to another episode of War Room Huddle Podcast, an RFG Advisory podcast for independent financial advisors who want to crush everything and take their A game to the next level. Brought to you by RFG Advisory with your hosts, Shannon Spotswood, Bobby White, and Rick Waddell. This is War Room Huddle.
Welcome to War Room Huddle, where we empower independent financial advisors to be the CEO of their practice, not the COO. Today is going to be awesome. We are in the studio with Bobby White, the founder and CEO of RFG Advisor. He is also a financial advisor, so this is going to be a really impactful conversation. Hey, Bobby.
Hey, Shannon. How are you today?
I'm fabulous. I'm not as good as you because I'm not on my way to a hunting camp.
I know. I'm pumped. Got one of my best friends and one of our board members, as you know. Matter of fact, I think we're going to get to this day, is the person who introduced us 5.5, almost 6 years ago, invited me down to his club to bird hunt today. So I'm an avid bird hunter. I love to do it, and this will be my last hunt of the season. So I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, it's a good day for a Friday after a great week for us.
Absolutely.
All right, let's jump into it. You founded RFG Advisory in 2003. Mm-hmm. And about 10 years later, around 2013, 2014, you went on what you call a crusade for growth. So can you share with us the story of the founding of RFG and that growth crusade?
Wow. So, you know, the founding of RFG and what it looked like for the 10, 12 years before tearing the house down and rebuilding what we affectionately call RFG 2.0 were two totally different companies, as you know. So it is a pretty cool story. I mean, I started in the business as a financial advisor in 1997, beginning of 1998. And went to work. Prior to that, I owned a little small business. I sold that business and found out that I wasn't passionate about what I did as far as the operations of that business. I found out I quadrupled the size of it over a 4-year period of time before I sold it. And so I found out I was pretty good at making business decisions. And I knew I wanted to go back into business for myself, but I didn't know what. And I told my wife, I'm like, she was working in Birmingham. I was working in where we lived, about an hour southeast of here. And I said, look, let's just move to Birmingham. I'll get a job in some type of sales. And I think I can do well with that. And I can spend 2 or 3 years figuring out what my next chapter is going to be as far as owning and running my own company. And so we agreed upon that. So I interviewed with several companies here in the Birmingham area, different industries, and got several offers. Again, I was 27, 28 years old and decided to go with an insurance-based broker-dealer that had a small presence in Birmingham. At the time, they were a Fortune 500 company. And finance had always been intriguing to me. I took a lot of classes in college as it relates to it. So I'm like, this will be interesting. So it's finance. I get to work with numbers. I get to work with investments, but I'm still working with people, you know? Yeah. So I'm like, this is intriguing. This is something I feel like I can do. So I took that position, and you've heard me say this many, many times. I'll take lucky over being good any day of the week, because that's part of mindset, putting yourself in positions to where you can benefit from the people around you, and then you can empower them as well. So I was very fortunate my first year in the business. I was the rookie of the year, company-wide, this little kid from Alexander City, Alabama, working in Birmingham. Everybody's like, who is this guy? You know, and I'm like, it's me. But 6 months into that, because I had business experience, they came to me and asked me to take over as sales manager of that firm. And I said no for 2 or 3 different times. I didn't want to be a manager for someone else. I wanted it to be my company if I ever went into a management role. But they eventually talked me into it. It's like, you know, you can still have your practice. This won't take much of your time. And, you know, we think you'll do well. I'm like, and so I reluctantly took the sales manager role. Had some success for personal practice, had some success in the Birmingham market over that short period of time. And 6 months after that, I got promoted to Senior Vice President of Sales for the Southeastern Division of the company. I'm like, what is going on around here? You guys are idiots. I mean, I have no experience. I don't know what I'm doing. But hey, I'll show up and give it a shot. 6 months after that, I was promoted to Managing Director of the Midwestern and Southeastern Division of the company. Now, at that point in time, I was sure they'd lost their mind. Yeah. For putting me in that role. I would report to the CEO of the company. And so I worked out of St. Louis predominantly during the next 3 years. I was 29 years old when I became managing director, the youngest managing director there. And over the next 3 years, I learned a lot about the industry. And more importantly, I learned what I didn't want to do. It was a proprietary company. It was a very good company at the time. And they manufactured some very good product that we could offer to our clients, and me being managing director offered to our financial advisors. I had 100 and something financial advisors that reported to me, a total of about 300 people in my organization. So I mean, it was a big job, and learned a lot. And like I said earlier, I learned what I didn't want to do. There was inherent conflict of interest, because if I as the managing director made more money if I convinced my advisors to sell the product that the company manufactured. And as I got older, again, I'm still young. I'm in my early 30s at this point in time. It started bothering me. It started bothering me to the point to where I honestly couldn't sleep at night. Yeah. And the company made some bad decisions on some, like I said, it was an insurance-based company. Great industry to learn our industry in, or great side of our industry to learn our industry in, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do going forward. And I made the decision. I'm like, this is I'm starting to second guess, that I'm doing the right thing for these advisors, number one, and definitely for their clients, because if they wanted our advice, we had a solution. It was our proprietary product, right? And when they did it, I got paid more money. Yep. This is a problem. It became a problem for me. So the company made some bad decisions because of, from a financial standpoint. I saw the writing on the wall because of the position I was in. And long story short, I moved back to Birmingham. I never moved away from Birmingham. I commuted back and forth, but came back to Birmingham full time, avoided a few lawsuits, and started RFG. And that was in June of 2003. And we started the company. It was me and another founding partner at the time who's no longer an owner of RFG, but still with our firm. He was the top producing advisor for that company in the Birmingham area. So I'm like, he's perfect for me to, co-found this idea that I had. And I was able to continue to grow my practice. So I had a fairly sizable practice at the time. And bottom line is we took about 3 or 4 other of the top advisors in the Birmingham area. He and I went and bought a 8,000 square foot office building. We occupied half of it. We rented out half of it to the person I bought it from. I mean, things were just working out. And basically started the company. And there was a total of 8 people with admin and everything. And we basically started RFG with the idea of building a little scale and capacity to share expenses and, have capacity to support mine in his practice. Right. That was basically it. And we were very transparent as it relates to that. And word got out after a while. We were cooking with steam. If you didn't think we were the smartest 2 people in the room, just ask us, man. We would have told you. I mean, 2 33-year-old kids, if you really want to be honest, we're going around like, man, we figured it all out. And we continued to grow just by word of mouth. I had advisors, and most of the business that we did at that point in time was in the Birmingham area. And I would have advisors reach out to me from other independent firms, wirehouses, whatever, and say, hey, I'd love to come talk to you about joining your platform. Yeah. What platform? I mean, this is just a few guys and a few ladies, just getting up and putting their pants on every day and going to work and taking care of their clients. And, the response I would get would be, you've got a great reputation in town. You built a good reputation in town. Y'all do what you say you're going to do. And we would love to join up with you all. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is neat, I guess. build some more scale, help some other people and things such as that. So that continued on for the next few years. And then 2007, we got to the point to where we were with an independent broker-dealer at that time. And we were predominantly brokerage business back then. A lot of people don't realize that we were not in a fiduciary model at that time, even though that's where I knew we needed to go. Yeah. And so in 2007, I went to my chief compliance officer at the time. I said, look, it's time for us to start looking at setting up our own RIA. So I charged him, I gave him a year, plenty of time, do all the due diligence, figure this out, and then report back to me. He did. And about the time he put it on my desk, it was March of 2008. So all of us that are at least 35 or 40 years old can look back and know what March of 2008 looked like from a financial perspective. And so I went to my team at the time, although very small, and said, look, this is something we are going to do, start our own RIA, become a full fiduciary model, but things are going on. We got the financial crisis, a lot of things going on, a lot of uncertainty. I don't know how long this is going to last, and I certainly don't know how bad it's going to get, but it's going to last a while, and it's going to get pretty doggone bad. What we need to do is go back to our clients, hold their hands, make sure they're taken care of, make sure we're doing the right thing for them. And this is going on the back burner because this is what we've got to focus on. So we all know how that ended. We were very fortunate. We were very blessed. Not only did we survive that, still being a fairly small firm at the time, but we thrived through it. We picked up new assets, new clients, and just continued to forge ahead and build good relationships. And then in 2011, we dusted the plan off of starting our own RIA and did that. And we joined the largest independent broker-dealer in the country, which, looking back, that was the right decision because they at least spoke hybrid. Hybrid meaning we were our own RIA, registered investment advisory firm, but we still had a lot of brokerage business and we needed a broker-dealer. And I did not want to be a broker-dealer. I wanted to get as far away from that as I could. So it was a natural next step. So we formed our RIA in 2011. And basically just continued to grow to the point to where we were about $450 million under management. Everything was going according to plan. Everything was just taking longer than I wanted it to because 2008 hit. Then this happened. Oh, we got to transition our book of business. We got to do this. And then I found out after about 2 years being part of that independent broker-dealer that that was not the partner going forward. Not anything that they necessarily did wrong. It's just there's two mindsets, two different ways of looking at things and looking at the industry. But I didn't know what that next step was going to look like quite yet. Yeah. But at the same time, I was to a point I felt I could double the size of the business over a 12-month period of time. So to your point, I guess I'm getting into the next chapter here. The growth crusade, man. I was like, I had two other partners at the time. And, I was the CEO all the way down to the bottle washer. It was one of those. It was a small, growing business. And I went on a crusade to double the size of our business over a 12-month period of time. And I wasn't able to do that, but I was able to triple the size of the firm over an 18-month period of time, predominantly due to two succession-driven acquisitions that I made. Man, it was exciting. It was like, oh, man, this is great. But at the same time, we did these deals right within months of each other. And so, as you can imagine, going from 450 to 1.2 billion at that time, I mean, you can do the math, man. I mean, there's cash flow, and you can adjust cash flow to where we had built a great lifestyle company for me and the other two partners. But what I saw after about 3 months of eating those two elephants simultaneously, that we were capped out. We were not going to be able to grow anymore unless I made some significant changes to our entire business model. We'd outgrown our broker-dealer relationship. We felt we were independent, but we really weren't because of that relationship, and that became very evident during that period of time. We had outgrown the technology. We had outgrown our custodial relationship. I'd outgrown half of my management team. I mean, I had a very good management team for a $500 million up to even $1 billion RIA, but to go from 450 to a 1.2 billion in 18 months with subpar technology. So, I mean, I was walking up and down the hall, Shannon. This is before we even met. And people's heads were exploding right in front of my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, now we got to clean the wall off because someone's brains have just went all over the wall. I mean, it was like people were scared to death. They let fear get into their spirit and their soul to the point they didn't know what to do next. And we didn't have the tools and the resources that we needed to support a $1 billion firm. So anyway, 2 or 3 months into eating that elephant, I was kind of proud of myself,
as you should be.
And I'm like,
that's a huge accomplishment.
I pulled it off, So I joke, but this is actually true, this statement that I'm about to make. So I go into my office. It was the day, man. I go in there, I shut my door to do the proverbial pat on my back. Man, you tripled the size of the firm in 18 months. And instead, I found myself in the corner of my office, in the fetal position, crying like a baby, going, oh my God, what have you done? People's heads are exploding. People don't know what to do. I've outgrown my management team, some of my management team. I've outgrown everything. What's next? Yeah. And what was next was one of two things. Keep doing what I'm doing. I've got a good lifestyle company, and this isn't a bad gig. I can provide for my family a good way. I can send my kids to school anywhere they want to go. I can do some great things that I never, the way I was raised, thought I would ever be able to do. But that's kind of not the way I'm built. Yeah. The other side was I could do this, where we are now. But I'm like, that's going to be hard. Yeah. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be a lot of change. I'm going to have to make a lot of changes in my personnel. I'd come to adore a lot of these people. So I knew that was going to make that was going to be very hard on me. So as I went through that, went back to eating that elephant, I get an email and a call one day from one of our mutual friends I didn't know at the time. I didn't know you at the time. He wouldn't mind me saying his name on this podcast, but Doug Cothart. And Doug is the CFO of Encompass Health, which is a large company based out of Birmingham, Alabama. He's on the board of several large public companies, and believe it or not, is one of my best friends. You put the two of us in a room, you're like, yeah, I don't get it. I see how you came up and how you came up, and then you listen to us talk for 15 minutes, then you're like, I get it. I get it. Why you are close friends. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be with him today, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But Doug reached out to me and said, look, I know you had significant growth over the last, couple of years. I don't know where you stand from an executive management team. But I met my across the street neighbor. Unbeknownst to me, she's been living here for a couple of years. Unbeknownst to me, has a 20-plus year career in institutional finance. And her and her family moved here a couple of years ago. And, she's been doing this luxury children's clothing line thing. I thought she just sold my wife expensive children's clothes. But unbeknownst to me, she has this unbelievable finance career and is looking to get back in the game. And doesn't know a lot of people. And she brought her resume over to me, and I thought about you, and would you spend 45 minutes with her? If it goes somewhere, great. If not, if you feel comfortable, extend your Rolodex to her to help her meet some people. Well, Doug's one of those, and it happened to be you. Yeah. And here we are. So we know how that ended, right. We know how that ended, but it's a cool story. So Doug's one of those type of people. If he asks you to do something, you pretty much do it, and he's a great, great guy and has done so much for me personally and our entire firm. Yeah. And so, he shared with me your contact information. We corresponded, we set something up, and, we scheduled that meeting for 45 minutes. Yeah. And, because I looked at your resume and I'm like, first of all, she can do my job, so I don't know how I feel about that. She's qualified to do my job. I just went through this big growth spurt. I don't know what's next. I don't know what direction I want to take the company. And so we scheduled the meeting for 45 minutes and, just to get to know each other. Because I didn't wake up that morning thinking I was going to hire the next president of my company, my next partner. And you didn't get up thinking you want to take a job at a high net worth retail shop, And so we had 45 minutes planned, if you remember, because you actually had an interview after me that you were actually interested in taking the job. I was just a filler meeting. Yeah,
my best filler meeting.
That filler meeting. So as you remember, we went back to my office, we sat down, we started talking, and immediately what I saw in you, I'm like, this is someone. I had plan A, plan B. All right, plan A was just keep trucking along like
lifestyle company,
and nothing's wrong with that. Plan B was just disrupt every freaking thing in my business, in my life, in the industry and build something bigger than ourselves. And what I saw in you is this is the person that can help me get there. And in 15 minutes, if you recall, I'm like, hey, I'm willing to cancel the rest of my day. Let's get to know each other. Let's just talk about the industry. Let's talk about the disruption. And we both, you called your next meeting, I buzzed my assistant, and we canceled the rest of our day. 2.5 hours later, we finished up my office with a legal pad, about 10 pages just scribbled all over, where we just outlined what RFG 2.0 would look like. And now here we are.
Here we are. It's such a great story. And every time you tell it, I swear it's like I'm transported. I can remember that moment so vividly. And
it seems like it was yesterday.
It does. It was five and a half
years ago. Almost 6 years ago when we met. It was in May, I believe. Yeah.
And, what was so exciting about that conversation was we really were looking forward to what's happening in the industry, to what we're experiencing now, this like tremendous convergence of disruptive factors. So of, the generational wealth transfer, the amount of money that's pouring into fintech, the changing expectations of the clients and what they really want out of a relationship with their financial advisor, fee compression for portfolio management, like all of these factors.
The commoditization of that,
of the industry. And as we sat there and we sketched out what is RFG 2.0? What is the RIA of the future? How do you serve independent financial advisors and their clients? And I will, forever be so grateful to you for that meeting, because my prior experience in San Francisco and on the institutional side and hedge fund management as an investment banker, as a entrepreneur starting this luxury children's clothing company, I was really seeking what I called the intangible, right? This intersection of opportunity and really smart, driven people intersect, and you get to build something bigger than yourself.
Yep.
So I didn't have attachment to what industry or what title or what was I going to be doing. All I cared about was that like lightning in a bottle. I was like, I want that again, because I had seen it. I'd been on the ground floor of 2 hedge funds, of an investment bank, of a startup company. And there is nothing more energizing, more motivating, more inspiring than to build something.
Yeah.
You can't have 100%. More fun. You cannot have more fun. So we're sitting there in your office. And as I look back on that and as we think about it in the context of this conversation, you were the prototypical financial advisor, successful financial advisor. You're the CEO, you're the founder, in your words, like the chief bottle washer. You're wearing every one of those hats, taking them on and off all day long, depending on what is the situation. And I really credit you for recognizing that to build the next chapter of RFG, to build RFG 2.0, you had to make some really tough decisions. There are not many advisors who have kind of the guts and the foresight to be able to say, like, I need to bring in professional management. I need to disrupt myself and my company. So I want to just spend some time, because the majority of financial advisors are sub $1 billion. So I want to spend some time kind of looking backwards and what you went through, what that means to be a founding advisor, to be, the person in charge of, because it is still the norm in our industry. This is still the predominant model. So what it's like to run a firm at, build it up to 500 million, from 500 million to $1 billion, the challenges, the opportunities.
Yeah. Well, first of all, one of our, I hate to use the term tagline, but one of the things that we talk a lot about here at RFG Advisory when we're bringing on new independent financial advisors to our platform is, hey, what we're going to do is help you be the CEO of your practice, not the COO. And that's so true. What I found is I thought I was the CEO of my practice. I was not. I was the COO of my practice. There was not a CEO. I mean, it was just, I was so entrenched in the weeds and the details, and had to be. There was no choice at that point in time. And, I knew that we had to build something different to be able to grow, and it was going to be very, very difficult. But as it relates to, and I didn't know if I wanted to do it, right?
Right.
You know, like, this isn't too bad what I have, but man, it could be so much better.
Yeah.
And hence, you know, RFG 2.0. But, you know, I saw very quickly that I was really not the CEO. And one of the things that if I've had any success, or if I've made any good decisions along the way from the business perspective, and I don't want to sound like I'm being cheeky here, because I'm not, but I want to be the least smart person in the room, right? And that may come off cheeky. I mean, if those of you that know me, that's not too hard, maybe sometimes, and I'll give you that. But seriously, if I've got the executive team, if I've got you and Rick and our senior team, and I want to be the least smart person in the room, because why are you there if I'm the smartest person in the room? I don't need you. So I think what a lot of CEOs, especially our industry, face is the fear, and we talk about fear a lot here, of not being that smartest person in the room. And it takes a special I'm not calling myself special, but it takes a special quality in someone to give up that control. Yeah, that control. We were talking about it yesterday. We were in Kansas visiting one of our new advisory firms that just joined our platform, and you were telling the story because the lead advisor there, the gentleman who owns the firm, is like, "Hey, this is another chapter. You know, I'm but I don't know what it's going to look like. You know, because he's got the two younger junior partners there." And, you know, you look back, it's like Bobby went through the same thing. You know, when we formulated our partnership and I promoted you 6 months after you joined to president, and you became a partner of the firm. You know, what was going on in the background of all that is I bought out two other partners, brought bringing you on. Eventually, we brought Rick Waddell on as our chief investment officer. So there were so many things going on at one time. I couldn't do it all. And I struggled a little bit giving up that control to you in managing the day-to-day of the firm. And it was difficult. But I'm like, if I'm going to be the CEO, this is what I've got to do. And too many advisors or CEOs of advisory firms will not allow themselves, and sometimes I hate to call you out, but sometimes won't allow you because of your ego, you won't allow it. Yeah. And I mean, at the time that you and I met, you know, we were at 1.2, 1.3 billion. Here we sit at 2.6 billion. So we've over doubled our size, and we rebuilt the company at the same time. Right. You can't do that as a CEO, COO, president, bottle washer. Right. You just can't. I mean, come on. So it's very important for CEOs to give up control to smart people around them and not be intimidated by the fact that, hey, they may know more than you do. I mean, I look at you now and I'm like, there's no way I can run the day-to-day of the company as good as you. I just can't. I know it. I don't try to anymore. Right. I mean, you come to me. I mean, we have daily partner calls and we interact together. We are all three involved in the company. I mean, full steam ahead, and we all have our roles and stuff like that. And, you know, as the president, you let me know what's going on. You come to me with, you know, for advice from time to time because of my years of experience in this part of the industry. And we communicate, and our dialogue is so good. That's why our partnership is so great, and along with our other partner, Rick. But you've got to be able to, you've got to give up some control in order to someone that you trust in order to take it to the next level. Again, we doubled the size again and tore down the old company and rebuilt what is now all at the same time.
Are you an advisor looking to make the move to independence? RFG Advisory is an innovator in the wealth management industry with a winning culture and a fully integrated tech platform designed to help advisors take their practice to the next level. Let us get to know you at rfgadvisory.com.
All right. I mean, you've said it so well, and it really is applicable whether you're at $2.5 billion or you're at $250 million, that you can't wear all these hats. No. You just simply cannot. And, you know, there's one of the other crises kind of facing our industry, and part of this disruptive change is the majority of the advisors who are running firms are north of 60. You know, the average age of a financial
61,
advisor.
62, depending on what statistics you look at.
And we're at, you know, maybe on a good day, 15 to 17% have succession plans. I think that is like exhibit A on this crisis of building enterprises that are sustainable. And I think as the industry becomes more complex from a regulatory perspective, from a technology perspective, from a servicing and marketing perspective, this like crisis of taking on and off your hat, of really being the COO when you need to be the CEO, is just getting exacerbated. Like, what do advisors do about it? What do they do if they're sitting there like, all right, Bobby, yeah, you went through this and you're, you know, kick ass and we're able to make these hard choices and bring in these like A players. Now you've gone from that firm that you started in 2003 to that marker of 450 million, 2.6 billion, on your way to 10. But that's not me. I'm 100 million. I'm 250 million. How is this applicable to an advisor who's running a practice of that size?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to be willing to not only disrupt things around you and challenge the status quo, but you got to be willing to disrupt yourself a little bit too. And you hear me say this all the time, probably to the point you get tired of hearing me say it. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you'll never be uncomfortable.
Amen.
And that is so true. That takes fear out of the equation. You know, fear only will slow you down. Fear will only make you hesitate. And so many advisors at the 60-something, age have no succession plan. They're not willing to give up control. And a lot of these advisors, guess what they do? They work a few more years. They're making a decent living, and one day they just get up and say, today's the day I'm turning the lights off. And they walk away from a significant amount of enterprise value. But the reason they do that is because, well, let me back up. They could be walking away from a significant amount of enterprise value if they haven't taken the steps or put the steps in place to realize that enterprise value is all for naught.
Yep.
And so many, and this is what gets me. I mean, I've been in the industry for a long time, 22 years, but it's like the cardiologist. Some cardiologists. Yep. All right. I'm not picking on cardiologists. I've got some cardiologist friends out there, so I'm not picking on you. But here's a good example. Cardiologists, they're going to tell you not to smoke. They're going to tell you back off on your drinking. They're going to tell you this and tell you that. Don't eat red meat and things such as that. And then they go home, smoke a pack of cigarettes, and drink a bottle of bourbon, and eat a big old steak. So sometimes we don't practice what we preach. And that's the same thing with, and I'm not picking on cardiologists, by the way. That's just an example. It's the same, it holds true with financial advisors. We don't always practice what we preach. We advise our clients on what they need to do to accomplish their financial goals and objectives and dreams. And we do that with our business owner clients and things such as that. And by the most part, we do a good job. But, especially on the independent side, or if you're in your wirehouse, you're never going to realize enterprise value. I'm sorry. I'm just going to call it what it is. But you don't put the appropriate steps in place to be able to realize that enterprise value. We're very fortunate here, as you know, at RFG. Our average advisor age is like 44, which is unheard of. 60-some-odd advisors, 44 is the average. That is so young. And so what we're able to do in helping our advisors, once they join our platform, is help them put the appropriate, steps in place to where they will be able to realize significant enterprise value. They will have a succession plan. We provide an immediate succession plan for them when they come on until we figure out what it's going to be going forward. So I share all that to go back to your point. What does it look like at 150, 250, 500? First of all, if you are under $500 million in assets, this is not a commercial for RFG. Take it for what it is. We're in business to bring advisors on, but partner up with somebody. It just absolutely makes no sense for you to be your own RIA. It's doable, and you can make a very good living doing it, but it's going to get harder harder and harder. Fee compression is real. Now, I do not participate in fee compression. It is real around us, but I'm not going to get in that battle. Whoever wins that battle to the lowest of fee is going to lose the war. What we do for our clients is of value, and people are willing to pay for that value. So I don't get it. Well, I got to lower my fees. Well, you're just saying you're not doing a good job. That's
what's your value?
What is your value? What are you bringing to the table? But fee compression is real, and you've got to be able to address that. Compliance and regulatory issues.
Ooh.
I've 22 years, and I've been a principal, meaning part of the compliance aspect of our business for 20 of those years. There's not been a year that it hasn't gotten harder. It gets different. But it
harder and more expensive.
Much more expensive. I mean, we're a private company, so I wouldn't disclose it anyway, but you turn over, you roll over if you know how much we spend at $2.6 billion on our compliance team and our retainers for the attorneys, our SEC counsel, everything else, to make sure we're compliant and to make sure our clients and our advisors are protected. And it's not going to get any. It's not going to get any easier.
Technology.
You took the word out of my mouth.
Talk about rollover in your grave.
Talk about rollover in your grave, man. 6 years ago, I'm like, this. Even and I'm not the most tech savvy person. I'll be the first to admit. We tell people RFG is a service company first, a technology company second, and an RIA third. And the order of those is very important. But if you'd have told me even 6 years ago, with my knowledge on technology, that technology couldn't be the second thing as we list out, I'm like, you're crazy. Me as the CEO? Hence I had to bring people a lot smarter than me in here to pull this off. But I had a vision. I knew what I wanted our technology to do. I didn't know how to do it. So, you've got to be able to be comfortable and be able to be willing to disrupt yourself to make things happen. So not only can you survive, but thrive going forward in a very disrupted industry.
So you're up to $500 million, and you were saying, it's just almost impossible to be your own
It's not impossible. It is very difficult, and it's going to get more difficult.
And then talk about it's equally as challenging in a different way, 500 million to $1 billion.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, and again, it depends on if you've got a niche market to where you can build organically from 500 to $1 billion, and you're not having, and you're bringing in those new assets and those new clients, you can still be profitable along the way from 500 to $1 billion. But it's very tough. But most people, $1 billion under management looks totally different than 500 million under management. If you're giving your clients what they deserve, and if you're giving your financial advisors what they need and what they deserve, and the amount of investment from 500 to $1 billion pretty much takes all your profit away. If you're doing it right, and that may sound counterintuitive, what I just said. If you're doing it right, you mean you're just breaking even? Yeah, that's right. Because you've got to invest so heavily and extensively to get it the way it needs to be. And then I would argue that $1 billion to $2 billion is the same thing. We're at $2.6 billion. We're sitting around looking like, man, I'm glad we did it. I don't want to do it again, though. Right. I'm glad we were past that chapter. And now we're at a point now to where, hey, we've got scale, we've got capacity, and we've got that time and investment behind. Now we continue to invest. We continue to in our people, our technology. It's never ending, nor should it be.
Right.
But what's the word I'm looking for? The Rubicon, aspect of getting through there. We got that part behind us.
Yeah.
And that's I'm glad we're not doing that.
Oh.
You were there in the trench with me. So
I know we're going to dedicate a whole podcast to the building of 2.0 and get comfortable being uncomfortable and what that really means.
And how many times during the day did we see that?
Yeah.
And if it was easy, everyone
would do it. Yeah. We're going to we're going to pull Rick in. We're going to talk about all that. But I want to switch gears here and get a little personal. So, most people only know you as a very successful founder, CEO, as an entrepreneur, as really a visionary businessman, as a very dedicated father, and more recently as a total badass who spent the last 4 years training with a Navy SEAL Team 6 veteran warrior, Dom Rosso, as a result of our groundbreaking podcast series, Become a Warrior. And most people don't know what Bobby White was all about before you were a successful business person, and how you grew up and how far you've come. And I think it's a really powerful story, and I would love for you to share it.
Whew. I don't know if we have enough time to share all of that. Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, people that don't, the story because not only you're my partner, but I consider you my sister too. So, pretty much everything there is to know about me. But I guess a lot of people that don't know me, know my background, they look at me as like, well, you're a wealthy business owner and successful, and, I'll take that, but they assume that I grew up with maybe some wealth or, upper middle class or, didn't do without, which I fully disclosure, I never went without food, clothing, shelter, anything like that. But I don't think many people know how I really grew up. It was a hard childhood. Like I said, not because of abuse or anything like that, but we were very poor. I never lived in anything. I think before I was 5 years old, I think we had a couple of rental houses we lived in that were actually houses that had a foundation. After that, I never lived in anything that didn't have wheels on it until I was a senior in college. So I lived in trailer parks my entire life. And there was nothing wrong with that because that's all my mother could afford. So I come from a family that I've got my mother and father divorced when I was a year and a half old. My father he contracted, either when he was 11 or 12 years old, he contracted a disease called rheumatic fever. Most people have heard of it. It's not as prevalent at this day and age as it was back when he was a child. And what rheumatic fever would do for a lot of people who get it as a child, it will cause heart disease. And so my father passed away at 40 years old due to a heart attack. And so he had struggled, was on disability most of his life. And like I said, he and my mother divorced when I was a year and a half old. So I have two very vague memories of my father. My mother, my siblings, I had two sisters, and I have a brother, and I had an older sister who actually was murdered almost a year ago. And so we had a lot of tragedy in our life and things such as that. But I have living my older brother and my youngest sister. My youngest sister is 10 and a half years older than me. So they were all pretty much grown, and out of the house. My youngest sister, we spent some time under the same roof as our mother. And my mother was a textile worker. I come from a family of textile workers and putwooders, and there's nothing wrong with those industries at all. And they're very, very noble. Everybody assumed growing up I was either going to work in a textile mill, which I did for a while as a manager, but I did for a little while out of college. And I worked in there as a worker through high school and things such as that, or a putwooder. And there would have been nothing in the world wrong with that. And no one would have looked at me as if I had failed because that's what would be expected. So I grew up, it was me and my mother. We were fairly close, my siblings and stuff like that. They came around all the time. But, I lived on the wrong side of the tracks, as it relates to my peer group and stuff like that. And so as a child going to school, like from elementary school, I look back, there's so many decisions I made, even as a child, up until in my 20s and 30s, and still now, that if I'd have made little bitty decisions, little bitty levers, that if I'd have made a different decision, my life most likely would have turned out totally different than what it has. And, there was a period in my life, I was about, I had a happy childhood, but it was, we lived in a trailer park and, we did fun things that kids don't do right now. We got outside and rode around in the dirt and, fought. And, we didn't like something the way it was going. We duked it out and then we'd be best friends again. It was a different way of bringing up than probably what a lot of people would imagine as far as the way my life looks like now. When I was 13 or 14, I made a decision at that point in time that you remember in school, you remember that kid, he or she that was, on the other side of the tracks, maybe a little edgy here and there, maybe gets in a little trouble sometimes, nothing terrible, but gets in some trouble here and there. But the popular kids still liked him or her because he or she was funny. Yeah. That was me.
Yeah.
That was me. And when I was 13 or 14 years old, I started hanging around with a different group. Not that the people I hung out with before were bad people, but I started hanging out with a different group of kids, teenagers at that time. And, all they talked about is going to college and doing this. And, when I grow up, I'm going to do this. And I'm sitting there going, I'm going to be a butt wooder. I don't know any different. But I got to know those people, listen to them, got to meet some of their parents and, stuff like that. And, God rest my mother's soul. She passed away about 2 years ago, and she had her own trials and tribulations as she grew up and, struggled and stuff like that, as a lot of people did. That was her age. And I remember going to her when I was 14. I said, Mom, I'm going to go to college. And I'd love to say that she said this to inspire and motivate me, but I don't think that was probably it. She just didn't know any better. But she looked at me and she said, you're not going to college. Number one, you're not smart enough and you can't afford it. And I'm like, huh. And that was the first time I realized that I had it in me that if you tell me I can't do something, it's going to get done. From that moment on, I'm like, Yeah. And I did it back then, like, I'll show you.
Right.
Okay, I'll show you. And my mother was not a bad person. She fed me, she clothed me, she made sure I was taken care of. Even though we weren't together a lot, I had to pretty much raise myself because she had the most she ever made was $16,500.
Right,
that's the most.
Yeah,
and it was just me and her and this trailer. And so I had to get myself off to school. I had to get come home. She was working and that was fine. But I remember that day as if it were a month ago, and I'm like, she just told me I couldn't do something that I'm very passionate about that I want to do to help me build a better life for me and my future wife, my children, and whatever it may be. And so, my grades were fine in school, but, I wasn't a Rhodes Scholar by any means. I was a good, solid B student. So no scholarships were in my future. But I moved out of the house from my mother when I was 17. I was a senior in high school when I moved out on my own. And I went to work in a foundry in the little town that I'm from. I slung a sledgehammer for about 10 hours a night. And then I would go back to my trailer, that I had a roommate with. And I would wash off because I would be black from head to toe with all the soot and everything else. And I'd get a shower and I'd go to the junior college that I went to school, that I enrolled in. That's another thing. I graduated from Auburn University, but I went to a junior college for 2 years because I couldn't afford it.
Right.
And I had to work. So I was working, slinging sledgehammers, doing jobs here and doing jobs there. Kind of went down a few wrong paths during that period of time and did some things I really shouldn't have done. And again, those small little decisions you make along the way, if I went just a little bit further this way, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. You wouldn't be worried. You would not care what my background was. You're like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. So I worked my way through junior college, got accepted to Auburn, went to Auburn, and I think that was a good turning point for me is when I went to school there. I got to meet a lot of new people, started building my confidence. It was like I was able to meet people and talk to them. People were interested in talking to me. I'm like, why are you interested in talking to me? Yeah. I'm like, okay. And so that was a big time in my exciting time in my life. And right after I graduated from Auburn, I went back to my hometown, Alexander City, and went to work for Russell Corporations because that's what you did if you were from Alexander City, and which is a textile mill company. But I came on as a supervisor, built my way up to a department head. And right after college, I started dating this young lady there in Alex City that was a few years younger than me. And her parents owned a photography studio. And I knew nothing about photography or anything like that. And their daughter, her name was Leanne, was just an amazing lady. And tragically, she was killed in a car wreck. Terrible time. And kind of went down the wrong path again after that happened, but I was still working at Russell, made a few bad decisions personally for me, but got past that. And then her parents came to me. They wanted, her father was going to run for mayor, which I helped him run for mayor, which was awesome. That is Don McClellan, and he passed away a year and a half ago. And he was like a mentor to me. And so they came to me and said, they had taught me how to take pictures. So when I was still in college, just finishing up college, and when me and Leanne were dating, they're like, hey, you can do weddings in Auburn. We can show you how to take pictures. And you can quit your part-time job in Auburn, just do that on the weekend and make more money. I'm like, I'm up for it.
Yeah.
Teach me. I'll do it. And so I laugh with them. I can't believe people are paying for me to take pictures at the wedding because I suck at this, but at least I guess it was good enough. I look back, I'm like, wow. And because I cared about it. I wanted to, I had my picture turned a little bit blurry. I'm like, no, that's a filter I used. I wasn't blurry. I'm like, good night, man. What am I doing here? But anyway, after Leanne had passed away, they were wanting to make some changes. They came to me and said, why don't you buy our business? With what? I mean, I was 23, maybe almost 24 years old. And I had a negative $50,000 net worth. Right. I mean, I had college debt. I mean, student loans and all this other stuff. And they're like, let's go to the bank. Let's see what happened. And I still say to this day that the best sales presentation I've given in my entire life is to be that 24-year-old guy born in a trailer park, talking to that bank president, loaning me $250,000 to buy that business. I mean, till this day, I'm like, wow, man, you couldn't get away with that this day and age. So anyway, I started running the business, made some good business decisions. I sold it after about 4 years, and then that kind of tells the first thing we started talking about here. And that taught me a lot. The way I was brought up, and I mean, I had success in the company I was with pre-RFG and now RFG. And what that, the tragedies that I've had in my life and the struggle that I've had in my life, I don't want it, but I wouldn't take anything for it because it made me into who I am today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's such a hugely important story because RFG 2.0, when we initially started on this journey of building the second chapter of the company, it was about creating this platform for advisors, delivering everything that independent financial advisors need to serve their clients and to build enterprise value and grow their practice. And as we've checked all the boxes on what I'd call like the foundational table stakes, as we've really have built a sustainable, scalable platform that is really going to, I think, change the future of our industry. We've also, and you've really led us on this journey, we've been going through as a culture and as a team, a tremendous time of personal growth. And I've had, I'm the beneficiary of this as your business partner. I've had a front row seat and played a small part in this as well. But you really have led us on this path. And the RIA of the future, as we are talking about it today, is so much more than just a platform. It's so much more than state-of-the-art marketing and tech and compliance and access to capital and culture even. It really has become about how you're going to live your life. What's your mindset? Who are you? And I think that to have that perspective of your story and how you grew up and how it's influenced your leadership style is really transformative for the RFG, for our advisors, and certainly for what we look like in the future. So knit that together for us. So you had this, this struggle growing up. You overcame it. First person in your family to go to college. All that you have accomplished, and we're on this journey, as you say, to get 1% better every day. So just knit that together for us, how your upbringing and the first chapter of RFG, the willingness to tear the entire house down and do something so disruptive, and to be so committed to being on this personal journey and looking towards the future of being bold and becoming 1% better every day. What does that even mean?
I say this quite often, strive to get 1% better every single day. And you asked me the question in the podcast we did like a week or so ago. It was like, is it that easy? And I'm like, hell no, it's not that easy. It is that simple. If you can train your mindset, and I talk a lot about mindset, and I talk about, becoming a better version of yourself, and I talk about getting 1% better every day. And a lot of that comes from my life experiences. And then it just took a new leap when I started training. You mentioned my training with Dom Rosso, who's been an instrumental person in my life. And, he's a SEAL Team 6, retired SEAL Team 6, and, as a founder and CEO of Dynamis Alliance, which is an elite training, company. They do all kinds of different things, very interesting. And that has really taken it to a next level and living that lifestyle of that warrior. And it's been fun for me, but it's been transformational, I think, for me, both personally as a father, as a leader, and everything else. And, a lot of those sayings that people hear me say, and I get some criticism about this every now and then, is from other operators, SEAL guys and stuff like that. You're just talking the same stuff that we talk about. I'm like, yeah, I never said I was a SEAL. I never said I was in the military because I wasn't. But I do believe in that lifestyle, and I've learned a lot from it because it's so transferable in every aspect of someone's life. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Why do you think the SEALs are saying that? Because every day of their lives is uncomfortable. You better get comfortable with it, or fear is going to take over. And if fear takes over, you're going to hesitate, and all it's going to do is slow you down. Well, in the environments that those guys are in, you can't do that. Right. It's the same thing in business. Right. If you take that principle and you put it in business, okay, it's like going from RFG 1.0 to RFG 2.0. What did people tell us? Our peers.
Everybody.
We're like, we're going to basically, Rick, our other partner, uses the analogy. Imagine this. We're on a jetliner, and we're about 40,000 feet above, and Shannon and Bobby come to me and said, hey, we're about to go out on the wing and change out both engines in mid-flight. Would you like to join? He's like, sounds like a lot of fun. Sign me up. And that's the kind of the mindset that we had to have when we were going through all that. So, getting uncomfortable, being uncomfortable, and, some of the things that these operators that I've gotten to know over the years and trained with and, and bled with, and blood, I'm not in combat or anything, but there still might be some blood here and there with the way we train. And it's all transferable to everything we do. We have to have uncomfortable conversations with our children. I've been in a position with our partnership. It's like, let's crush the fear and let's get on with it because we don't want that to set us back. And as that gets to, becoming a better version of yourself and getting 1% better, you've heard me say this so many times, and I think I said it earlier in this podcast, because we used to say it a lot. We still say it, is if it were easy, everybody would do it. And we can be complacent. Okay. It's easy. We can make excuses. I had every excuse growing up not to. I had my fun in college. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a saint by any means, and I had fun and stuff like that. I did what you would imagine other college kids are doing and stuff like that. But I had to study too. I had to work hard. I had to go to my job, so I couldn't stay up to 2 o'clock in the morning like a lot of my buddies were because I had to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work the next morning. I had to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work so I could pay for my tuition and pay for my rent and all this other stuff. And so it would have been so easy not to deal with that pain and that work ethic and just go hang out with my buddies and stuff like that. And no one would have looked at me because of the way I grew up and think that I was making excuses. Right? It wasn't expected. Right. But don't contract the excuse disease, because the minute you do, once you allow yourself to, and Dom and I talk about this all the time, man, we're in the global pandemic, whatever we're calling it at this point in time. There's a much worse disease out there than COVID, and it's called the excuse disease. Mm-hmm. And so many people allow themselves to just make excuses one after another, and it's accepted in our society. I
would say it's encouraged.
Well, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to be nice, but it is encouraged. And so what I tell people, I tell our team, strive every day, get up, have your routine, and strive to get 1% better in everything you do. Because if you do that, think about the compounding effect. Well, if I get 1% better today, that's not much better than yesterday. Yeah, but it's better. Right. It's better. Think about if you do that every day for 7 days. Think about if you do it for 90 days, 365 days. You're going to become a force multiplier for all the important people around you that make that positive difference in your life. You're going to be making a positive difference in their lives as well.
Couldn't have said it any better. Be a force multiplier. Thank you, Bobby. This is a ton of fun.
This has been fun. Thank you. I get to go hunting now.
Thank you for tuning in to War Room Huddle. War Room Huddle is a production of RFG Advisory, a leading innovator in the wealth management industry. To learn more about RFG Advisory, head on over to rfgadvisory.com and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of War Room Huddle.